Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a fantastic start to your day. And I certainly hope you folks have been having a great week out there so far as we're cruising on through it. We have a lot of active weather out ahead of us. In fact, the severe weather threat has increased for tonight across areas of like Arkansas and surrounding states. And of course, it's maintained itself for areas of the southeast for tomorrow, our Friday. We'll give you updates on the severe weather side of this, but of course, we will focus in on today's forecast first and what's going to happen between now and the next 24 hours. And then we will go after that into Friday, into the weekend. We'll talk about the rest of this storm system that's going to be a high-end storm system. It's going to deepen. The low pressure is going to deepen pretty quickly in just a 24 to 36 hour period. And this is going to be a very dynamic storm system, pumping out a major winter storm on the cold side of this, a blizzard certainly for certain areas. We need to figure it out. And then on the warm side of this, of course, we have our severe weather threat cranking up as early as tonight into tomorrow. And then after all that, we have Arctic air coming down. In fact, it's already in the process of coming down. Then we'll have another push that will be even more cold here in the next day or two. And then pretty far south, we could have a winter storm threat. We're going to give you some updated information on that. And not just for the South, this could eventually move into the eastern U.S., where we could maybe get a big-time winter storm next week sometime for the eastern U.S., so we need to figure this one out. We need to break it down. Confidence continues to increase that something's going to happen across areas of the southern states. So we will talk about it in this video. We'll give you all the information, so take advantage of those timestamps. They're there to help you folks. I put a lot in these videos because my videos are so long, you guys know. But the timestamps are there to help you folks skip to the sections of the video you want to watch. I totally understand. I understand that people don't have 45 minutes to an hour out their day, twice a day, to watch the entire length of these videos. So I certainly understand. If you guys got anything that, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can do that and so others can do so too. So deep breath. Let's get rocking and rolling. So we got snow moving across the Great Lakes region, still part of that same system that we kind of spoke on over the last couple of days. Very minor system, but I mean, it is bringing, a couple inches of snow to certain areas. Let me know what you're seeing across the Great Lakes region. This morning, this is moving into southern Ontario and will bring a little bit of snow for interior sections of the Northeast throughout the day today. We have a frontal boundary that's sagging across areas of the western U.S. This is bringing cold air also for the northern plains. We have snow associated with a boundary and even behind it, so snow is falling at some pretty cold temperatures across areas of the country. But no snow for the south. Nothing too crazy going on this morning, but that will certainly change over the next really 24 hours. It'll start to really crank up, and even tonight. So as far as what's going on right now, not a whole lot going on. A little bit of shower activity for the southern end of the peninsula of Florida, but outside of that, pretty quiet start to your Thursday morning compared to what we're about to see. So the Storm Prediction Center has bumped this from a slight risk to now you have an enhanced risk for today. And this, like I said, for you folks in Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, all these areas that have the threat for severe weather today, if you get to dinner time tonight and you're thinking, Mitch, nothing has happened, why are they calling for severe weather? I'm telling you right off the dot, this is not really going to get going until after the sun sets tonight. Maybe not even until like midnight tonight. And we'll discuss that in great detail once we get to the south central section of this video. But we will also get detailed on the threat levels of this. So right now, we'll just keep it at this. We'll show you there's in the orange area, level 3 out of 5 risk, and then the yellow area, level 2 out of 5 risk. That's a slight risk. Dark green, general risk, level 1 out of 5 risk, and just a general risk of thunderstorms everywhere else. So let's go on and move past that. We will get much more detailed on that here in a second, so bear with me. Threat of flooding is not very high, just a marginal risk. That means there's at least a 5% risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles of any given location. Not a big deal over the next 24 hours. Watches, warnings, and advisories. It's like deja vu. We're seeing wind advisories being issued again after just being dropped about 24 to 36 hours ago. Here they are being issued again. You got Wind advisories for all these areas in this sort of tan color. High wind watches down here for South Texas. High wind warnings in Southwest Texas. High wind watches, high wind warnings. And New Mexico, you got winter weather advisories in these purple colors, which is right here for the storm about to move in. This is for what's already going on right now. You got high wind watches already up for the western sections of New York, where you're going to get winds screaming over the Great Lakes with snow potentially falling. High wind watches already issued for the coastal regions of New England. A lot going on. Then you got the winter storm warnings already up. Every county in Iowa has a winter storm warning except the far southeastern county of Iowa. But, you know, I got a good feeling that you guys will eventually get a winter storm warning. So they just have winter storm watches across the rest of the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region. But my hunch is they will issue blizzard warnings somewhere. I would argue, I don't know. We need to figure that out. I would say maybe more so into Wisconsin and certainly up into northern lower Michigan, maybe even the UP of Michigan. So we need to figure this out. But we will. Blizzard warnings issued for areas of western Wyoming. Just a lot going on. A lot of winter weather alerts out into the northwest, also in the northern Rockies. Let's talk about the southeast first. And we'll kind of zoom through this because today will be pretty quiet. We'll take it through the morning. There's still a little bit of Gulf moisture beginning to surge northward. You can tell there's a system moving in. It's already kind of influencing the atmosphere here and bringing some warm, moist air out of the Gulf, but it's not going to do much between now and the next 24 hours in this area yet. Getting into this afternoon, some showers are possible across Mississippi, Alabama, not a big deal. Showers are definitely possible, widespread showers, maybe some storms across Florida. Not a big deal either, but certainly some scattered downpours across the state of Florida. Now, as we get to around midnight tonight, this is around 2 a.m. Eastern Time, 1 a.m. Central Time, we start to see storms. There's that 995 low beginning to pop off. We got storms developing in Texas, storms in Arkansas, and even Missouri. And then as we get to like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, this is when some nasty storms get going here in northeast Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. But we're going to talk about that here in a second. Click on the South Central frame for that, and we are going to get very detailed for that here in a second. A lot of shower activity out ahead of this as just a moist environment begins to rise north across areas of the southeast. And we'll stop it here. This is Friday morning, and the storms are already getting going and starting to move into sections of the deep south. So waking up to some showers tomorrow morning in central Florida. Let's move to the northeast. Pretty quiet morning out there. Let me know if you are seeing any snow across Ohio over the next couple hours. But we get later into the morning, I think some snow will begin to fall in Buffalo, the Finger Lakes region, southern tier of New York. Some snow will begin to fall across Rochester, maybe Syracuse, Watertown as we get into midday. And I do think some light, maybe at times moderate snow will move into the Adirondacks, maybe even some snow showers in northern PA. As we get to just this afternoon, and then we get deeper into this afternoon, some snow, light pretty much, and maybe some burst of maybe moderate snow will move across northern New Hampshire, northern Vermont, and then maybe a little bit of a kind of a lake-enhanced moisture popping off Erie and Ontario that will move obviously from west to east, and will add some additional snowfall totals to areas of New York and those lake effect favored regions. And this evening, just scattered snow showers just around, and then we get all the way to Friday morning. You can see our system beginning to enter our screen out here from the west. I think things will quiet a little bit more down later tonight in these areas, but you know, between now and the next 24 hours, a couple inches of snow is possible in the higher elevations of Vermont and New Hampshire. And of course, right here on the eastern end of Lake Ontario, several inches of snow is possible. North of Syracuse, between Watertown and Syracuse, and these communities in here could get 3, 6, 7 inches of snow. I think Buffalo could get a quick inch, maybe 2 inches of snow today, but points south could get a few inches of snow, quite possible in these regions. Maybe dusting to maybe an inch amount here in the Finger Lakes region. Let's move to the south central U.S. So we'll hang tight here for a little bit because there's a lot of weather going on. We'll section this off with the severe weather, and then I do see a little bit of snow as we get late tonight into tomorrow morning, making its way through Oklahoma. Could deliver some light accumulations too. So we'll start off this afternoon. This morning ain't a whole lot going to happen. You see some snow flying around New Mexico, southern Colorado, and I do think we'll get some accumulation certainly up in the higher elevations of New Mexico. There's that low beginning to dig, and it's about to start moving northeast, and we keep this going. And you notice at this point we're around 8 p.m. There's nothing going on in Arkansas. You're thinking, all right, the sun's already been down for a couple hours, so where's all this severe weather? Well, you keep this going. This low begins to get very close. It begins to take on that negative tilt. The trough gets negatively tilted. The dynamics begin to really rise. And here it goes. And we're going to talk about all this up here when we get to the north central frame here next. But 995 low, moving into Missouri. We got elevated storms up here in Missouri. We're going to get some thunderstorms probably, and pretty much the eastern to southeastern sections, the boot heel of Missouri, probably around midnight afterwards. And then we got a line of storms developing here in northeast Texas. But look at the snow developing here in the panhandle of Texas, western Oklahoma. You keep this going, and look how dynamic this storm system is. This is around 4 a.m., give or take a couple hours central time out here. Looks like you have another low that develops here, and I think this is the one that really starts to deepen. Actually, it's this one right here. There's multiple like lows that get going, and it's this one right here that really pops up here tomorrow morning in Arkansas that really is going to try to deliver that blizzard up here in the Great Lakes region. But we'll stop it here. This is around 5-6 a.m. tomorrow morning. You got a lot of weather going on in Arkansas. At the same time, you got cold air oozing in, and you got a period of light to moderate snow screeching across Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma City to Tulsa could get some light snowfall accumulations from this. And I think as the tornado risk, the severe weather is moving out of Arkansas, at the same time, you got snow moving into the northwestern section of Arkansas, even into, Missouri, Springfield, Fayetteville, Fort Smith. You guys got some snow moving in. So it's pretty wild. It really tells you how dynamic this is. So let's dive deeper into this severe weather threat. Enhanced risk for northeast Texas, kind of the Texarkana region, all the way down into northwest Louisiana. You in Shreveport, you got an enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5, and almost all the way up to Little Rock, but it looks like a south and southwest and west of you folks. So this entire corridor right into here, all of southwest Arkansas under enhanced risk. And then slight is in the yellow. What is this for? All threats are on the table. Tornado threat in the yellow, 10% risk of a tornado. If you've been watching me since the severe weather threat a couple days ago across the southeast, you probably understand these threat levels already, but we always go over them again for any new viewers. But the yellow is a 10% risk of a tornado, and the brown is a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. But you see these checker marks going through only the yellow. Not only do you have a 10% risk of a tornado, you have a 10% risk of a significant tornado. It's called a hatch risk, which means you could have an EF2 or higher tornado, a 10% risk of it. So, hail threat, check this out. Hail is going to be a bigger threat with this. Yellow area, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. The hatch region in this area right here, and this is later tonight, you also have a 10% risk of significant hail, which is hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. Okay? Big risk for hail tonight. And then the wind threat, just a 30. There's no hatch risk with this. You notice this is a great example of showing a risk area that doesn't have a hatch risk. The red is just a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. The yellow, same criteria, but it's only a 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher, 55 to 60 miles per hour. So winds are going to be a big deal in the same area that has an enhanced risk. So that's the threat levels. Now let's talk about what the models are looking like a little bit closer. So, it's wild. We are starting this off around 10 p.m. tonight. Storms begin to fire here in central and northern Arkansas. And these initial storms kind of head northeast. And then as a low really begins to cross Arkansas, this is when the dynamics really get going. A line of storms develops, I would say, around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, points east, begins to move through all of northeast Texas. And this line of storms right here is probably going to pack a punch. Hail threat, tornado threat, and strong wind threat. But anything that really gets going out ahead of it, right into this region, especially south and west of Little Rock, this is 4 o'clock in the morning. People are dead asleep probably. You're going to be having a tornado threat moving over this section of southwest Arkansas in the wee hours of the morning. This is getting into 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and we stop it right here. And check this out. You have a significant severe weather threat moving through probably areas of eastern Arkansas, especially southeastern Arkansas, into Mississippi. And then you got snow moving into portions of the state behind it. There's that snow falling in Tulsa. And we got to watch all these storms. They kind of got that look to them. They're kind of semi-discrete. They kind of got that kidney bean look to them that we don't like to see where these storms are rotating. But this is the section right here that they're the most concerned about right now here. That's where your best thermodynamics are going to be. Your higher Cape levels and your better moisture return, your higher dew points. And then we'll stop it right here. And, you're waking up in Memphis to some rocky weather. Jonesboro, the Boot Hill, Missouri, Dyersburg, and all of northern Mississippi waking up tomorrow with some rocky weather, all the way down to Jackson. So what about the updraft helicity swath through this region? Here we go. Not really much through about 11 p.m. We start to get into midnight, and there it is. It starts to show up down here in southeast Oklahoma, northeast Texas, and then southwest Missouri. They really like the storms to get going just after midnight along this line just east of Dallas, right into here. You see these, just shades of color. That indicates where this run of the HRRR model is saying where these storms could be rotating. I mean, even up here in southern Missouri, they like some storms rotating up here, just more so probably elevated, which means they're probably not going to latch really to the surface as a tornado. Then we take it all the way to about, 9 a.m. and then we do show some signs of rotation. And this reason you don't see nothing in Alabama, deeper in Tennessee, is because these storms haven't reached this area yet. And then winds, we take a look at winds. It's already going to get breezy just after midnight tonight in areas of Arkansas. I mean, northeast, Arkansas, southeast, Missouri, western Tennessee, already gusting to potentially, 30, 40 miles per hour. And then we are getting into tomorrow morning. And wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning, there's that line of storms moving in with the potential for 30, 35, 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts associated with it, all the way down to Louisiana. And then we got the front that sweeps in behind it, and it's going to be very breezy behind this front also. And look how strong the winds get behind all of this. So the snow threat with this, we'll take it all the way till about 5 p.m. this afternoon. Snow begins to enter the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. This is around 10 p.m. Snow's falling in Amarillo. Some snow could begin to fall in areas of Woodward. Snow begins to work its way after midnight, maybe into the Oklahoma City region. Good bit of cold air following behind it, allowing whatever moisture out here, that's left in Oklahoma to really switch to some sort of winter weather. And then we take it all the way to about 4 or 5 a.m. You got a band of snow moving through Oklahoma City. I think this is going to happen. I think we could get maybe even a snow shower as far south as maybe north of Dallas. We'll see what happens. But you're waking up tomorrow morning to snow flying around in Tulsa. I really think this will be the case. We'll see what happens. Of course, even southeast Kansas too, and then Fayetteville. I think some accumulations could add up here too. Not a whole lot, but you look at the forecast from the National Weather Service, which is always going to stay a tad bit conservative. But they're going for a half inch, close to 1 inch around Oklahoma City. Going for just a dusting amount, half an inch in Tulsa, but this could increase. I would stay tuned to updates from this throughout the day from your local people. But, northwest Arkansas, half inch to 1 inch of snow. And up to Springfield, you might get an inch of snow from this. This is what the National Weather Service is showing in these areas. So let's take a look at the north central U.S. And we're only going to go out 24 hours. And then we're going to have a separate segment here in a second for the rest of the storm. But between now and the next 24 hours, this clipper moves on out. We're done with this. Some lingering snows up here in northeast Minnesota will continue to add up accumulations. And then this area of snow begins to get going this afternoon in southern South Dakota, northern Nebraska, and we keep this going. And then a lot of moisture gets going. And this is around 9 p.m. this evening. Snow is falling at a pretty heavy clip and some pretty cold temperatures in eastern Nebraska. And northern and especially northeast sections of Kansas. Look at the snow falling in northern Missouri. Snow is beginning to take over the state of Iowa by the time we get into the middle of the night tonight, about midnight. Heavy snow falling in the northern counties of Missouri, but you're very close to a dry slot here and just warmer air because of this low. But, you get to midnight tonight, the snow is still flying around. And the like Omaha region, Lincoln, Sioux Falls, Sioux City area, and southeast South Dakota. Snow tries to get all the way up to Minneapolis as we're waking up tomorrow morning. Well, it's about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't think there's a whole lot of people up this early. This is around 3 a.m. Central Time. Snow's falling in Des Moines, points north, Ames, the Davenport region, northern Illinois. Heavy snow begins to fall initially. And I think this, as we're getting into the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning, I really think that this snow could fall pretty heavily across northern Illinois because you're getting a lot of warm air advection, but it's still cold enough for snow in these areas. Southern sections of Wisconsin, it begins to snow pretty heavily. But of course, if you're up against the shore of Lake Michigan, you got to watch out. You guys let me know in the comments how, I've said this in last night's video, it's like deja vu, but how the totals in a lot of areas did not reach what was forecast. We'll see what happens with this system. It's a totally different beast. No storm is alike, but we'll see what happens. But we'll take it all the way out to Friday morning. You got to, well, this is around 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Burst of snow moves through Chicago initially. I think you'll get it maybe a few hour period of maybe heavy snow based off the HRRR model. Take it all the way out to around 7 a.m. Friday. Snow is beginning to move into areas of western Michigan, southwest Michigan. Snow is falling pretty heavily. Heavy wet snow in the far northern counties of Indiana. And then I want to watch for a north trend with this. But, if you're in Minneapolis, which if you go back and you look at the watches and warnings, I think the winter storm warnings are just south of Minneapolis. You only got winter storm watches. But you go back to this, just find the right frame here. It does show moderate snow working its way in at very cold temperatures. Okay, so we'll stop it right here. Snow is falling at this point in Milwaukee up to Green Bay, everybody in between, all the way up to northern Wisconsin. So snowfall between now and the next 24 hours, a broad look at this. This is just between now, I'll reiterate this, between now and the next 24 hours. Still snowing in many of these areas. But you already got a half a foot of snow forecasted in Omaha, Lincoln, good 5 to 7 inches of snow. You've already added up to several inches in just western Nebraska in general, a few inches in northern Kansas, extreme southeast South Dakota, a few to even several inches. Somebody might get 6 inches of snow. And the entire state of Iowa has new snow on the ground because you probably still have snow on the ground from the last system, but you have an additional few to several inches of snow. Obviously, this storm is just really beginning to take over these areas. So I think in western Iowa at this point, you already have several inches of snow on the ground. And the potential is there that maybe a couple to a few inches of wet snow is already added up in areas of northern Illinois and the southern half of Wisconsin. Okay. And then, you've already got a couple inches of snow that's already fell on the ground here in Michigan. So we have to see. It shows between now and really tonight, I would say an inch of snow has already fell in Chicago. A little bit closer look at Nebraska. Here it is. Stop the screen if you need to. Find where you are on your screen. But this is what Nebraska looks like. And, we'll even move into Iowa. This is what Iowa looks like. So tonight, stay tuned. We will begin to dive into some of these individual frames, especially more into the Great Lakes region. But we will give you update information. There's another segment of this video that will dissect the rest of this winter storm from Friday morning onward. So definitely skip to that if you want additional information. But the western U.S., it's not super active out there this morning, but we're still going to deal with just kind of snow squalls throughout the northern Rockies, just bursts of heavy snow throughout Idaho, western Montana, Oregon today. Heavy snow is falling in the higher elevations of Arizona and New Mexico, where several inches of snow will add up. And then as we are getting into this afternoon, this evening, it's going to become more widespread across the northern Rockies, snow falling in the Cascades and Washington, especially Oregon, snow falling in southeast Washington State, northeast Oregon, and just a lot of scattered snows flying throughout the area across the northern Rockies. And then we are starting to get into Friday morning, and there is another reinforcing front already moving through southern Idaho, areas of western Wyoming. That's probably going to create blizzard conditions for a time. Moving through the Rockies, this is reinforcing the cold air as we're getting into our Friday morning. So probably a big-time Arctic front moving through southern Idaho as we are waking up for our Friday morning. Snowfall just between now and the next 24 hours. Heavy snow up here in the Rockies, several inches of snow, another few feet. Goodness, there ain't no way. Look at this. Between now and the next 24 hours, they are forecasting right here 45 inches of snow. There ain't no way. I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's wild. Holy smokes. But several inches of snow will add up in the Rockies and Colorado, and just basically the Rockies everywhere. You'll get some sort of snow. Not everywhere, but for a lot of areas. Anywhere from light to heavy snowfall accumulations. Here it is, the temperature. You can see what's kind of going on, right? The eastern U.S. is above average for the most part. I wouldn't say well above average. I would say a tick above average. you know, you got warmer temperatures beginning to rise into the south central U.S., the deep south, and you got temperatures in the 40s and 50s right here in this section of the country, which is slightly above average. Kind of a typical January day across the southeast. Well, temperatures will rise into the 50s, maybe a tick above average after a cold start this morning. And then the northeast, certain areas are above average, certain areas are around average, but you know, it's pretty chilly. But here comes the Arctic air oozing down into the middle of the country. You got temperatures well below zero that's beginning to make its way into the northern Rockies. You got teens surging down to the middle of the country. And then check out this boundary between basically, you know, you look at Oklahoma points south, it's pretty warm. I mean, Texas is getting into the 70s. Dallas, Fort Worth area might hit 70 degrees a day. Same thing in Shreveport. You go up to like Nebraska points north, you're into the teens and single digits, even below zero. And this is areas of the country that your temperatures could drop throughout the day, especially once you get way up here. But very cold temperatures across the northern plains in the north central U.S. So let's start off by talking about this winter storm where we kind of left off, which is tomorrow morning, our Friday morning. So we're going to take a look at the HRR model, the NAM, and then I think the Euro is what I got pulled up. So I want to let you guys know right off the dot, there's going to probably be some upset people, and that's why I make videos twice a day to feed you guys updated information. You know, some people are probably going to think there's going to be a blizzard in Chicago, and then heck, you might end up just with a few inches of snow. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I could see that happening, and I'm going to show you why here in this video. It all depends on what this incredibly strong low is going to do. Is it going to move further north? Is it going to stay further south? It's going to stay right on cue, right on forecast. We need to figure that out. So let's take a look at the HRR model. First thing you'll notice, and if we can get this going, first thing you'll notice is that all this rain is switching to snow. So you go from rain to snow in like Columbia, a lot of heavy rain down here in southern Illinois and southern Indiana, just rain. You're not going to get really any snow from this unless it's just some back end snow that delivers light snowfall accumulation. So snow is beginning to fall at a pretty heavy clip up here in lower Michigan, Wisconsin. Snow has reached all the way up into Minneapolis, and I could see this trending further north into Minneapolis. I would watch out if you live there. And then there's a little bit of a dry period, and this is going to be a period of the storm where a lot of people sometime tomorrow morning are thinking, well, is that it? That's the end of the storm? That is not it. You keep going deeper into the day of Friday. We're about, let's see if we can get the timestamps up right here. We're about 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. The HRR model, folks, says it's raining in Chicago, and you're even struggling in Milwaukee. And, I mean, it's even trying to turn to rain here in like southwest Michigan. Heavy snow, though, where it is snowing. But you got to think, there's Arctic air crashing into this low, which is right in here. This is deepening. Could potentially be a bomb cyclone where it drops about 24 millibars in 24 hours. That's what's considered a bomb cyclone. And I think that we're probably going to get one here. But if you notice, it's raining in Chicago, and then it abruptly shifts to extremely heavy wet snow sometime Friday afternoon. And I mean, it is unloading snow based off the HRR model. And then you got this cold air wrapping behind all this heavy precipitation, and then it just abruptly switches to snow. But you're still hanging on to that rain-snow line in Chicago. It's unloading snow up in Milwaukee. You're plenty cold at this point in northern Illinois, snowing very hard over here in eastern Iowa, snowing all the way up into Green Bay. How far northwest will this snow get into like Minneapolis, up here in like Madison? It's snowing very hard in Janesville, and just basically between and just north of Chicago all the way up to Green Bay, it is snowing very hard. Heavy snow begins to fall in lower Michigan, but the southern sections of lower Michigan is just getting rain. And look at this weird scenario right here where the immediate low's right here, and it's bringing a lot of warm air with it, but you got cold Arctic air circling behind it. So it's snowing in southern Indiana, but it's raining in like northern Indiana. It's mostly going to be raining in Ohio. We'll talk about this here in a second. So this is just kind of a weird setup, and somebody could get dry slotted. Here's that dry slot right here showing up around the actual low pressure. When they're so strong like this, you got to watch out for a dry slot. Heavy snow up here in the Great Lakes region. And then the back end of this switches to snow again Friday evening in Chicago. Continues to snow in Milwaukee, snowing very hard up here in the UP of Michigan. You got to watch the UP of Michigan with this, especially the eastern UP. This could trend into a massive system. And just a very looking radar depiction right here showing, I mean, it looks like the eye of a storm. It literally looks like that. And I think that it could actually resemble that in real life. But look at all this back end snow getting thrown into very cold air back west. And this is as far out as we go. We take a look at the NAM. We'll go through this a little bit faster. Same thing. Sometime Friday morning, 7, 8 a.m. starts off as like a brief burst of snow. And it's barely hanging on to snow, rain and snow in Chicago. You're not getting much at all in northern Illinois at this point. You're switching to heavy wet snow on the NAM based off what this is showing tomorrow afternoon. Heavy wet snow even in northwest Ohio. And finally, it switches, and all this kind of dry slot fills in. By the time you get into 4 or 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, this starts to switch to snow for like the entire northern half of Indiana in this. Chicago, Milwaukee, all these areas. Detroit, it's even snowing initially. It stays snowing in Detroit based off the NAM all the way till tomorrow evening. And this is, when we get into Friday evening, tomorrow evening, this is when the blizzard could really tap in. The winds really start to increase. The low is very deep. It's deepening it still at this point, which means the dynamics are really maxing out in this area. And we stop it here. We'll get all the way to about 11 p.m., midnight tomorrow night. You got an all-out blizzard going on across areas of the Great Lakes region. Heavy snow flying in Chicago. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you folks in Chicago, if you only start off as a brief burst of snow tomorrow morning and then it stops doing anything, do not think the storm is a bust. It's not done yet. So just keep that in mind. That's why it's important to watch the entire section of these. We're talking about a winter storm for your certain area, don't just fast forward to the snowfall accumulations. You got, and unless you have an open mind about what's going to happen, but a lot of people do not. I really think that a lot of people, and not just my videos, but other videos too, they just go right to the snowfall accumulations. They don't really care to hear about the discussion. And in their head, they say, all right, 6 to 8 inches of snow, and then they don't get another update for another 24 hours. And maybe it stays the same. And then by the time the storm's moving in, they only get an inch of snow, but they missed the discussion, the risk, things like that, that really could have told the story about why it busted low as far as the forecast. So the European wants to just keep it all snow and like Chicago. But here it is. This is moving in Friday evening, big time winter storm across the area. And then it heads off. And then, one thing we got to watch is the Arctic air that moves over the Great Lakes region. And this is going to add additional snowfall accumulations after this storm pulls through, as we're probably going to get some vigorous lake effect snows from this system for sure. Snowfall after Friday morning. This is between now and Friday morning, but look at the National Weather Service forecast going basically the length of this storm. This is all the way to Sunday morning, and this is as far out as it goes. And I can tell you right now, they're only forecasting from this about 4 to 5 inches of snow in Chicago. So, from what I can tell, I can look really hard at this, and we're going to pull up individual graphics tonight in tonight's video. Stay tuned for that. But what I can tell, they are still thinking the warm waters of Lake Michigan is going to play a factor, especially the western side of Lake Michigan. So keep your hopes a little bit down. This is going to be another solid hit for Iowa. Widespread, probably 6 to 10 inch snowfall across Iowa, unless you live in the far southern counties. And then this looks like a heavy hit for northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. I mean, kind of look where your area is on your screen, but I think Michigan's going to get blasted with this. And I think this could trend higher for the UP of Michigan. You're going to get better snowfall rates than what this is showing probably. And I think the snow could be falling in very cold temperatures depending on how far north you are. But this is widespread foot and a half, and they're even forecasting 20 inches of snow in certain areas of sort of the northern lower Michigan portion of the country. So a big time event moving in for sure. And then we check out the winds here. It's already going to start gusting tomorrow morning. But as we are getting, like I said, to tomorrow evening, heavy snow begins to take over this entire area with 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts beginning to get kicked up here. Significant winter storm in these areas. Blizzard conditions. I think you're going to get blizzard warnings up here for like the northern sections of Michigan, maybe into the UP. And then I think we need to watch out sections of Wisconsin also. But look at this corridor of winds making its way through the Ohio Valley section down here, 55 mile per hour wind gust. And then it really escalates as it gets on top of Lake Erie. And all out blizzard for certain areas. Let's talk about a severe weather threat for tomorrow. Enhanced risk maintains itself from eastern Alabama all the way into the Sandhills of North Carolina, central Midlands. Basically this includes just about Fayetteville, Columbia, Florence, Orangeburg, Augusta, Lancaster, almost to Savannah, Macon, up to Atlanta, Montgomery, Alabama, Dothan. So yeah, slight risk all the way down south of Orlando, all the way to Jackson, Mississippi, pretty much all the way into the southern sections of Virginia. So this does include Birmingham also. So what is the threat levels with this? They have dropped to 10% risk of a tornado. The brown, remember, a 5% risk of a tornado, and the 10% risk of a tornado is in the yellow. And you also have a hatched risk. This includes my neck of the woods again. The same places are going to be under the gun again. So you have a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. You also have a 10% risk of a strong tornado. That's an EF2 or higher. And look, the hail threat's larger with this. 15% risk of hail in the yellow area. And that means there's a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in this region. And then the wind threat, kind of a skinny corridor. Sorry about the little glitch there. And in the red area, you got a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. But you also have a hatch risk, which is a little displaced to north, probably because the best wind energy is probably going to be just a little bit further north compared to our last system, which was further south. So Atlanta to Charlotte, almost to Greenville, Spartanburg, Columbia, these areas have a 10% risk of significant winds, which is winds exceeding pretty much 70 to 75 miles per hour in this area. They might cancel schools again. In fact, I know they will across the southeast. They're probably going to end up canceling schools again, depending on where you live and the timing. But we'll start off where we left off with the HRRR model. Line of storms moving across the Mississippi Delta region. This continues. We have to watch all these cells out ahead of this. In Alabama, Mississippi, this is the main line, main frontal boundary, storms out ahead of us. These will be firing off in this sector of ingredients that will support severe weather. And we keep this going. We go all the way to about 11 a.m. Storms are surging through Alabama. Got to watch all these storms into here, down to Auburn, down to Montgomery, getting into Macon. Storms start to fire up in Atlanta, point south. There will be some very gusty winds with this. And we keep this going. And then, by the time we get into later tomorrow afternoon, the storm threat's over for Alabama. I think Alabama, Mississippi, this is more so for tomorrow morning and late tomorrow morning, maybe early afternoon. And then, we look at the significant tornado parameter. Watch as it spikes as it moves into Mississippi. This is around tomorrow morning. You got significant, basically STP readings of around 4, 5, 6, even some 7s in here. And then this really spikes as it moves into southwest Alabama. And this is around midday tomorrow, just south of Montgomery, just south of Birmingham into the Montgomery region, southern Alabama, the Panhandle of Florida. You guys will have, basically the higher this number is on the significant tornado parameter, the better the ingredients for tornadoes. And then it gets into Georgia, maybe lets off the gas a little bit with that. So we'll see what happens. The Carolinas, how could this look based off the latest HRRR model? We're going to get a big area of rain that moves into the Carolinas. Could get a little ice at the onset of this in the mountains of North Carolina. Certainly possible. A little bit of a glaze as some cold air will hang on. Even show some snow up there near Banner Elk. Some snow initially here in West Virginia. And then we have to watch all this shower and storm activity. This looks very congealed, all kind of matched together. It's around 3 or 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. This could speed up. Models have been trending a little bit faster with this. I was thinking a couple days ago this would move in after the sun went down Friday night, but now it's trending to more of an afternoon thing, which increases my confidence even more that they're going to cancel a lot of schools across Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas, or maybe late start, early release, something like that. But all these storms kind of have that look to them, but they're very all congealed together. The timing of this is going to be tough to nail down just because it's speeding up as far as model guidance. But here comes this line of storms making its way through Charlotte. I think there'll be some gusty winds associated with this. But once we start to get into deep Friday night, severe weather threat begins to drop off. Even some snow flying around up here in West Virginia. Significant tornado parameter with this. There might be a period where it lowers in Georgia and then it could spike again, especially in eastern South Carolina. Kind of that same area that we saw 2 days ago in eastern South Carolina. And then, even look, we're getting into this tomorrow evening. This is around, 8, 9 p.m. Significant tornado parameter begins to rise in this area of southeast North Carolina. And it could have a tornado threat all the way until late tomorrow night in eastern North Carolina. And then finally, it clears on off. Winds with this, take a more of a broader look at this. Winds begin to gust pretty strong in Louisiana tomorrow morning, Mississippi, and then Alabama. Look at those 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. Look at the higher elevations of Tennessee and North Carolina, winds gusting to, maybe hurricane force winds. Look at this corridor, very strong winds into Kentucky. Widespread over 50 mile per hour wind gusts will move across the Cumberland Plateau also, and then they begin to increase across Georgia and the Carolinas. Maybe not as strong as this last event because I think that this thing is tilting a little bit further north, but gusty winds still to boot out here in the southeast, and then this heads on off. What about the northeast with this same system? We're still talking about the same system. And all we can do with the HRRR model is start off Friday evening. And I think Friday evening we could start off kind of like with the last system. Here in northern PA, the Finger Lakes region, western New York, we could start off with some very heavy wet snow to really start the system. Look at this line of storms. This sort of is there across Maryland, the Panhandle of West Virginia, northern VA, heavy rain moving across areas of the Delmarva region, eastern PA. But you got this line of storms that's kind of spiraling into colder air. So you could get some very heavy snow late tomorrow night across northern PA. I think it's possible. A quick couple inches before warmer air moves in, and then we take it all the way to about the middle of the night tomorrow night. And we got snow overspreading the Finger Lakes region. Looks like snow is switching to rain and Binghamton. Snow's starting to move into the Adirondacks and just starting to move into the higher elevations of Vermont and New Hampshire and even the Berkshires. We'll watch out for that. But, you look at the actual European from this and how it looks, and we'll have to go to this because we got updated information. And it does show the idea of interior northeast snow. We'll take it all the way to Saturday morning, and it's snowing pretty good out ahead of this as it crashes. This low crashes in the cold air. Heavy snow falling across most of New Hampshire, Vermont, except the southeast corner of New Hampshire. Adirondacks is getting heavy wet snow. Could stay all snow in the Adirondacks from this. Winter storm moves into Maine again. Sort of similar setup as the last one. Starts off as heavy wet snow Saturday and Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. Could stay all winter weather in extreme northern and western Maine. And then behind this, as we get to the later portion of this weekend, I think we're going to get some intense lake effect snows off Ontario and Erie and Huron into southern Ontario. And we'll talk more on this as we get a little bit closer. There's so much other stuff to talk about, but I think this could dump feet of snow, these lake effect snows. And I would watch Buffalo with this too. So snowfall between, and this is in 24-hour increments. So this doesn't really count the snow that could fall kind of between now and the next 24 hours, but it does show this area initially of a few inches of snow as this moves in kind of Friday night into this region. A quick, very slushy, wet couple inches of snow in this area, western New York, kind of northern PA, northwest PA. And then the Adirondacks, the Green and White Mountains, and the higher elevations of Maine could get several inches of snow from this. Definitely stay tuned to your local people. But the Adirondacks could potentially get 8 to 12 inches of heavy, wet snow. And you combine this with the winds moving in Friday afternoon, it'll begin to get very windy across areas of New York, Pennsylvania, scattered 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts. Will increase even more in New York as we get into Friday night. And this turns into another raging, rainy windstorm across Long Island. Very strong winds across southern New England. And then look at the coastal regions of Maine, New Hampshire, and Mass, even Rhode Island. Man, it's looking like another nasty coastal flooding risk here for the coastal regions of Maine for sure. And then getting into Nova Scotia, winds will be gusting to 40, 50, as much as 60, 65 miles per hour. And then as the Arctic air mass moves over the Great Lakes, you're going to have a period of very strong winds coming off Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and just this alone, as the lake effect snow bands begin to get going off Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, this will create the potential for blizzard conditions in these areas. It's getting into Saturday evening. You got winds gusting to 50 to 60, 70 miles per hour around the Buffalo area, all the way to Rochester. And snow's going to be blowing around. Even look at these winds Saturday evening into western PA, higher elevations of West Virginia and Maryland. So, big time event. Moving past this, so much to talk about. So Arctic air begins to ooze in. We dove deep in how cold this Arctic air could be in last night's video, and we'll do it again here in the coming videos. But just lack of time, we'll talk about this winter storm threat for next week. So Arctic air is oozing down, and then we watch this energy that moves out to Rockies. And you see sort of this energy right into here. It's kind of vibrant yellows and reds and oranges. That is our energy. with cold air already that's kind of moved into this region, that energy will be in the form of winter weather. And we're getting to Monday afternoon. This energy kind of scoots out ahead of this. And then you have another piece of energy that tries to tap into something right here. This dives down and could be a totally separate deal here with a lot of Arctic air around. And this kind of phasing right in here could turn into something for the eastern U.S. So that's kind of the evolution of this. But initially, we watch this wave right into here. And to show you what this looks like, the European will start this off Sunday afternoon. There's light snow falling and very cold temperatures across Nebraska, Oklahoma. And then we start to move into late Sunday night. Look at the snow flying around in northern Arkansas and then Oklahoma. This darker blues, moderate snow flying at very cold temperatures. Look at this freezing rain showing up in North Texas, Central Texas. And then we get all the way to Monday morning, the Euro showing an all-out icing event across Central and North and Northeast Texas, all the way into Northwest Louisiana, Southern Arkansas. This is all snow, and this portion right here. I'm going to keep saying this, falling at very cold temperatures. The 10-to-1 snowfall maps will not work in this case because you're probably going to get more so 15-to-1 snowfall ratios, 20-to-1 snowfall ratios, which means 15 inches is equivalent to 1 inch in liquid, okay, of snow. So snowfall ratios will be much higher, which means snowfall will add up easier than if it was snowing in like 30 degrees. But we get all the way to about midday Monday, and I mean, you got an all-out winter weather event going on in Dallas-Fort Worth, snowing in Little Rock, freezing rain falling in Shreveport, heavy snow falling in southeast Oklahoma. Still a lot of moisture around. Remember, Arctic air is shallow and it's very dry. It squeezes out a lot of moisture out of the atmosphere. So in a lot of these areas, I suspect that moisture will be flying around, even though it ain't even showing up on model guidance. But you keep on going. Snow gets all the way down to northern Mississippi, Memphis, as we get into Monday afternoon. And then you got freezing rain that starts to dip all the way down into central and southern Louisiana, central and southern Mississippi. And we have to watch freezing rain all the way down into South Texas. Okay? It's pretty wild stuff, guys. So what about the GFS? What does the GFS show with this? Same thing. It's a little bit further north. And Sunday afternoon, you have a decent snow event flying around across Oklahoma. This would bring major road concerns because, like I said, it's going to be falling with temperatures in the low 20s, teens, heck, maybe even single digits for certain areas. Snow begins to move into northwest Arkansas, southwest Missouri, all of southern Missouri. Some light snow up into St. Louis too, Kansas City. And then look at the winter weather breaking out across north and northeast Texas. Heavy snow falling on the latest GFS in eastern Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, and northern Arkansas, and then the Boot Hill, Missouri, and then snow starting to make its way into western Kentucky, which we'll show you more of here in a second. And we take it to Monday morning, an all-out winter storm is breaking out with very cold temperatures across northeast Texas, northern Louisiana, where you have ice. The orange is more so sleet, but don't focus so hard on that. But the pink is freezing rain, and then the blue is snow. All-out winter weather, winter storm across Little Rock, moving into sections of Memphis. And then this begins to move out, and then we could watch another round that moves in behind it. That's something to watch. Man, a lot going on, right? So what about the signal from this? We'll talk about the blend of all models, which, folks, is always going to be more on the conservative side. I'll be completely honest with you, but I want to stay conservative for now. And this is the signal in 12-hour increments. Shows a few inches of snow across southern Kansas and then most of Oklahoma. And the signal increases as we get into Sunday night and Monday morning across this region. Shows a few inches of snow across this area of Oklahoma into northern Missouri. I know you're thinking, Mitch, that doesn't seem like a lot at all. But falling at very, very cold temperatures, I would guess that you're probably going to get more snow than what this is showing. I'm just staying conservative as of now. That'll change when we get a little bit closer. And then the signal, continues all the way into the mid-south. It's not very high, but it's there. The icing is what's really concerning to me. Okay, we'll start off Sunday afternoon, not a whole lot, and there it is, getting into Monday. There's that signal for ice, which if you watch, yesterday evening's video, it has broadened, and some of these numbers have increased. You're going for a few 100ths of an inch of ice. Not a forecast. It's just a storm signal. So it's a solid ice signal across this area. You move into the eastern U.S., same thing, folks. Here comes snow breaking out across Tennessee, northern Mississippi, into the southern Appalachian Mountains, Kentucky. Then it begins to kind of kind of let up a little bit, and then a low begins to form in the Gulf of Mexico, and then the snow begins to increase in northern Mississippi, even into northern Alabama. Look at the freezing rain all the way down to central Mississippi. And then look at the freezing rain Tuesday morning on the latest Euro began to show up in central North Carolina. Look at this band of pretty heavy snow falling in western Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, western Virginia, southern West Virginia. You still got snow falling now all the way in the northwest corner of Georgia. Look at this winter weather flying around all the way in southern sections of Louisiana. What's going to happen here? Well, there's our low that could bring something big for the rest of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. You got snow flying around in North Carolina now. So this is trending a little bit more wintry for North Carolina. You're going to need more work for South Carolina, deeper in Georgia. But this brings snow in Northeast Tennessee. And I will reiterate it a million times, falling at very cold temperatures. It's not a marginal event with this. It's just finding moisture at this point. And then check this out. Tuesday afternoon, which isn't far out, winter storm breaks out across Virginia. Yes, Richmond, D.C., the Delmarva region. This would be a storm that favors you folks. Not a ton of precipitation getting thrown to this, but that could change. Maybe a little bit of blocking up here, and this would be snow falling at very cold temperatures across areas of the coastal mid-Atlantic, the Delmarva region, and southern New England. This would be a stripe of several inches of snow if this was the way it was going to play out. What about the GFS? Same thing. Here you go. You got winter weather. It tries to hold together a little bit more into Kentucky. Snow falling at very cold temperatures in Kentucky Monday morning, all the western half of Tennessee. You keep this going, and then it kind of breaks apart. You got moisture down here, but the cold air has not gotten. That is the issue for the Southeast, is the cold air has not arrived when the moisture already has. And when you live east of the Appalachian Mountains, cold air chasing moisture events do not work 9 out of 10 times. I can count in my head, like on one hand, how many times I know that it has worked. But you can continue to go, and you're thinking, well, this storm is gone. And then a different evolution unfolds on the GFS. Further, it looks like it digs differently here. Tuesday morning, look at this heavy snow. An all-out winter storm breaks out across Tennessee. After the initial push of moisture kind of fizzles apart, Kentucky, moderate snow falling at very cold temperatures, falling across areas of Kentucky, southern Ohio. This is a storm for West Virginia, the entire state. Look down here in the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina. This will be a winter storm. Northeast Tennessee, eastern Tennessee. And then we got to get this cold air in here for this to work out for the I-95 corridor. But this shows a pretty substantial winter storm for areas, unfortunately, just west, if you're a winter weather fan, just west of the I-95 corridor. And, eventually, though, this changes to all snow for you folks, too. So there's the signal from this in 12-hour increments. It kind of decreases, and then it grows again on the blend of all models in Kentucky and Tennessee, West Virginia, and then it really gets going. There's your signal for Pennsylvania, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast as we get into early to midway next week. What about ice? Look how this has increased across North Carolina, even upstate South Carolina and Virginia. There's an icing signal here for a few 1/100ths of an inch of ice. And then, folks, we know there's cold air coming. Look at that. That's anomalies. That's anywhere from 15 to as much as 35 degrees below average Monday morning. Tuesday morning, this digs down to the deep south and begins to take over the eastern U.S., but moderates somewhat. That's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and I'll be with you guys this evening.